Hello everyone, I am Sunil Kumar Vishwakarma, working as an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, School of Engineering, BBD University, Lucknow. Today in this lecture, I am going to discuss the design issues of the data link layer. First of all, what is data link layer? This layer is the layer 2 of the OSI model, and the functions of the data link layer is framing, error control, flow control, and access control. When we talk about the physical addressing, it is related to the data link layer. And the network interface card of the any device represents the physical address of the device, or we can say the MAC address, medium access control address. The functions of the data link layer is framing, means the data which data link layer receives from the network layer, and after that in that data it adds header and appends trailer. Header is added for the control information. It contains the sender address and the destination address, and only trailer is added by the layer 2, that is data link layer. What is the reason for adding the trailer? Trailer is added for the error control. So after framing, the second function of the data link layer is access control. Access control means when there is a shared channel and there are too many devices are connected with that channel, which device will use that channel at a time. This problem is solved by this access control mechanism. And after this, there is error control. Error control is also a factor in the data communications. And in error control, there are two things: error detection and error correction. When error is detected, then it is corrected also. So this is error control is the function of the data link layer. And the last function of the data link layer is flow control. There should not be the mismatch of the data rate between the sender and the receiver. Both the devices must be on the same clock bus. Both the devices must be synchronized. So now the data link layer has a number of specific functions it can carry out. And what are these functions? These functions include: first is providing a well-defined service interface to the network layer. Data link layer provides well-defined service interface to the network layer because all the layers are connected through interfaces in the OSI model. So there are some certain services, well-defined services. And the second point is dealing with transmission errors, means data link layer is responsible for the transmission errors. Errors are detected and corrected at this layer. Third function of the data link layer is the regulating the flow of data. Regulating the flow of data so that slow receivers are not swamped by fast senders. Means there should not be mismatch between the sending and receiving devices, and this is managed by the data link layer. Means flow control is the service provided by the data link layer. So these are the three goals, these are the three functions of the data link layer. So accomplishing to achieve these goals, the data link layer takes the packets it gets from the network layer, because the data at the network layer, we call it packet. So these packets are taken from the network layer and encapsulates them into frames for transmission. So data is taken in the form of packets from the network layer, and after that encapsulates them. What is encapsulated? That header and trailer which is added by the data link layer, and after that it becomes frames, and after that it is transmitted. Each frame contains a frame header. Each frame contains a frame header, a payload field for holding the packets. So what is the use of payload field? Payload field is used for holding the packet, and a frame trailer. Why trailer is used? Trailer is used for the error control, or you can say that for the error detection and error correction, as shown in the figure. In this diagram, it is shown the relationship between packets and frames. There are two machines, sending machine and receiving machine, or we can say the sending computer and the receiving computer. Here it is shown that the network layer and the data link layer. At the network layer, we call the data as a packet. So at the sending machine side, packet is transferred to the data link layer of the sender machine, and after that packet is converted into the payload field, because payload field holds the packets, and after that trailer is added and header is added with that payload, and combinedly we can call it as a frame, and finally that frame is transferred to the receiving machine, and its reverse process is employed there: header, payload field, and the trailer, and after that packets are used and packets are received by the network layer of the receiving machine. So in this way, in this diagram, it is shown that how the packet and frames are interrelated and how they works. Now the services provided to the network layer. Which type of services data link layer provides to the network layer? The functions of the data link layer is to provide services to the network layer. And what are those principal services? The principal services is transferring data from the network layer on the source machine to the network layer on the destination machine. So principal service is to transferring data from the network layer of the source machine to the network layer of the destination machine. That's it. Now on the source machine is an entity, call it a process. When somebody asks about the process, what is process? You can say that any running application program is known as process. So there are so many application programs run at a time in any machine, or we can say that there are so many processes, active processes in the machine at a time. So call it a process in the network layer that hands some bits to the data link layer for transmission to the destination. So the job of the data link layer is to transmit the bits to the destination machine so they can be handed over to the network layer there. Okay. In this diagram, it is shown that how virtual communication is done and how the actual communication happens in the data link layer. So in the figure A, there are two devices, host A and host B. These are the numbers: layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4. What we want, the packets should be transferred from the layer 3 to layer 3 of the host 1 to the layer 3 of the host 2. So this is the virtual data path. Virtually this process happens, but what actually happens. How actual communication happens? These packets are transferred to the data link layer, and after that it is transferred to the physical layer, and after that through physical communication channels it is transferred to the host 2 machine, that is destination here, physical layer of the destination, and after that data link layer, and finally the network layer. At the network layer that packet is received. So in this diagram it is shown that how the virtual communication and how the actual communication is done in the data link layer. Okay, now the data link layer can be designed to offer various services. The actual services offered can vary from system to system. So three reasonable possibilities that are commonly provided are: three types of services are offered. First one is unacknowledged connectionless service. Second one is acknowledged connectionless service. And the third one is acknowledged connection oriented service. So now we will see one by one these services, what these services do. Okay, so the first service is unacknowledged connectionless service. Means in this type of service there is no acknowledgement and there is connectionless service. Connectionless means for example we can say that walkie-talkie. If somebody speaks in some area, all the other devices receives that signal, means there is no connection. That is connectionless service. So first service is unacknowledged connectionless service. Here the data link layer of the sending machine sends independent frames to the data link layer of the receiving machine. So frames are sent independently to the data link layer of the sending machine to the data link layer of the receiving machine. The receiving machine does not acknowledge after receiving those frames. So there is no logical connection is set up between the host machines. Errors and data loss is not handled in these type of services. And this type of service is applicable in the, you can say, Ethernet services and the voice communications. Okay. Now the second type of service is acknowledged connectionless service. Here no logical connection is set up between the host machines or between the sender and receiver machines, but each frame sent by the source machine is acknowledged by the destination machine on receiving. Means there is no logical connection set up, but there is acknowledgement after every frame received by the destination machine. So if the source does not receive the acknowledgement within a stipulated time, because there is some time is fixed, within that there should be acknowledgement. But if within this stipulated time there is no acknowledgement received, then the source machine resends, or we can say resends the frame. And this type of service is used in Wi-Fi services. And for the Wi-Fi we can say this is IEEE 802.11 standard. There are certain standards of the IEEE. IEEE means International Institute for Electrical and Electronics for Engineers. Okay. Now the third service is acknowledged connection oriented service. Acknowledged connection oriented service means this is the best service that the data link layer can offer to the network layer. A logical connection is set up between the two machines, that is the sender and receiver machines, and the data is transmitted along this logical path. Means there is a logical path is set up, and after that data is transmitted along this logical path. The frames are numbered, that keeps track of loss of frames and also ensures that frames are received in the correct order. So if there is no numbering of the frames, there will be problem if they arrive out of order, that cannot be reassembled because there is no numbering. But in this type of service, each and every frame is numbered, so they arrive whatever the order, in whatever order they arrive at the destination end, that is reassembled. Okay. The service has three distinct phases. In this type of acknowledged connection oriented service, this service has three phases. First phase is setup connection. Setup connection phase means a logical path is set up between the source and the destination machines. Buffers and the counters are initialized to keep track of frames. Okay. What is buffer? Buffer is a small temporary storage area. And what are the use of counters? Counters are initialized to keep track of the frames, for the counting the frames. So first step is the setup connection. Second step is sending frames. After setup the connection, the frames are transmitted. Okay. Now the third phase is release connection. The connection is released, buffers and other resources are released. Because if the connections are released, all the resources, which type of resources are involved, buffers and the counters, they all are released. So it is appropriate for satellite communications and long distance telephone circuits. Okay. Now the placement of data link protocol. And the services provided to the network layer. In this diagram, there are two machines, host machines, sender and receiver. In the first block, in the left side block, frames here, and after that data link layer process the frames, and after that it is converted into the packets here, and after packets it is received at the layer 3. Layer 3 is the network layer, and the function of the network layer is the routing. So it uses the routing process, and after that again layer 2, physical channel, again data link layer and the network layer. In this way it is converted and the received at the receiver machine of the network layer. So these are the numbered, that's why 2, 3. 2 means data link layer and 3 means network layer. So this is all about of the data link layer design issues. What are the design issues, and how, which type of services are provided by the data link layer to its upper and lower layers, and which type of services are there. These three services are explained: unacknowledged connectionless service, acknowledged connectionless service, and third one was acknowledged connection oriented services. And after that, in the next lectures, we will discuss about the data link layer services in the detail. Thank you.